Okay, so this is a big question. I don't know if you've really answered, but just what's going to happen next? What's coming? I mean, uh,
It's hard
you
to
can
see this.
you can
You look, I
speak in vague terms if that's all you can do. But I
yeah,
mean,
well,
or
yeah. I don't know. I don't see an end to this. Okay, well, maybe you could look at the two extremes and say likely something in between or something completely different. History is full of surprises. I think anybody who really predicts the future with confidence, and especially at the beginning of a war, is a fool. Okay, well, let's say that Israel and the U.S. Make a serious miscalculation, as the U.S. and NATO clearly did in the case of Russia and Ukraine. And they underestimate Iranian capabilities. Their air defense interceptors are quickly become depleted, and Iran begins to press a real advantage, and the future of Israel really seems to be in doubt. And then in this meantime, let's say the ground forces become bogged down and begin to suffer defeats. The Israeli ground forces in Lebanon begin to suffer defeats. Well, it's at that point we've talked about it. It's just that Israel, first of all, I think would show no reluctance to actually use nuclear weapons if it felt that its existence was at stake. And I think also that it could actually set the bar very low for that, because we see that already. It's just like if they feel like they've completely lost the deterrent capability and that people don't, their adversaries no longer fear them. I think they would find that to be an existential threat. I think they really could use nuclear weapons. So this is one extreme. We'll just say that. The other is that, well, for example, Hezbollah fails to plug these holes, and then Israel, these intelligence leak holes, and Israel continues to pummel the leadership, and also, maybe they're able to pinpoint with accuracy exactly where Hezbollah missiles are being stored, for example, and they do manage to destroy a lot of them, to destroy launchers, and maybe they know exactly where the tunnels are. Maybe their intelligence is on Hezbollah is vastly superior to what it was in Gaza, and they are able to do real damage. They're able to defeat Hezbollah. That's not impossible either. Let's be honest. Again, it's just, I think we're all surprised by the degree to which Israel had infiltrated Hezbollah, and maybe that's going to continue to give them a large advantage. And Iran, it turns out either it doesn't have the resolve or the capabilities to do any significant damage to Israel. They do something, but Israel hits back hard, and Iran simply pulls out. That could happen too, and it would be a victory for Israel and the United States. Those are the two extremes. Now, likely it's going to be something in the middle. It's going to be a longer war of attrition, and I think if it turns into a longer war of attrition, it begins to favor actually the axis of resistance in this case.
Okay, in the scenario where Israel defeats Hezbollah, but do you think that Israel will stop? That it will lay down its arms? Because I feel like Israel is in this bloodlust right now,
Yeah,
and it doesn't seem to be able to stop. It has no desire to stop. It doesn't seem to want peace. It
right.
seems like they see this as their opportunity to take Gaza, to take the West Bank, maybe occupy, take more, go into Syria,
Yeah,
take more of the Golan Heights, take
yeah.
Lebanon. It just doesn't seem like, I feel like maybe they see this as their chance to achieve that greater Israel.
Right, right. Yeah, they
And if you
actually have.
see,
That's a good point. I mean, they have an incentive to have a protracted war. Of course, one in which they're victorious. But if they can draw out this war, I think it probably gives them more opportunities to expand the territory of Israel in Gaza, in the West Bank, and possibly even there in southern Lebanon.
Right, but it just seems so foolish because, look, even if you did achieve it, how do you think you're going to hold that much land? There are not enough Israelis around, for one thing, and you're already they've lost close to like 20% of the Jewish Israeli population in Israel. It just not. I just don't see it. I don't think it's possible, right? I mean, even if you do take it, then what? You're going to build a massive wall around everything and just continue to beat everybody into submission. I just don't understand.
That I mean, clearly that's their policy. I mean, that's what they are aiming at, and they're assuming that they're just going to have unlimited backing from the world's superpower, the U.S., and that they can achieve this. And maybe they can. I hate to say that. I don't want this to happen. It's horrible, but maybe they can.
It just seems so hard to believe because, I mean, first of all, we're in the middle of a global transition of power.
Yeah.
The U.S. is no longer the hegemon. Russia.
I mean, if they do achieve this, I mean, as we have said many times already, Israel really has suffered because of what they've done. Their standing in the world, their moral standing is completely gone. They're the world's pariah. They're hated around the world, everywhere outside of the U.S. and a few Western nations. They're hated, so there's that, and that has consequences. You can't simply ignore that, and there are economic consequences. The economy is contracted by something 20%, and I don't think it's ever going to recover. It's never going to be, again, like we've said before, investors are never going to look at Israel in the same way that they looked before. So it has taken a hit, even if they do succeed militarily and they do expand their territory and they do build this wall. This is going to be a different Israel, and they may win this battle, but I think they've actually weakened themselves in the long run. And meanwhile, as you just mentioned, the global balance of power is shifting against the West. This is something that, of course, we've talked about much, and especially in reference to Ukraine, but it has clear implications here. I mean, that the adversaries of Israel in the West are growing stronger. And the U.S., I believe, is on and most Americans agree, is on a downward path. So this is maybe the time, I think this is part of the reason that Netanyahu is going for broke, that he sees that this is maybe the last time where he really has the edge, where he might be able to pull this off. Because 10 years from now, it's not going to be possible. Well, he'll have this fortress Israel, but maybe 10 years from now, with this, he's a technology he's developed, and America, becomes enmeshed in begins to, we've already seen, like what's happened in the Red Sea, continues to lose its advantage. It will be in a much weaker position. Israel will be.
Yeah, I mean, even if they do achieve it, it just doesn't seem like something that they could hold for very long. I just don't understand. It seems like I wonder that. I'm like, does Netanyahu really have a plan? I mean, what's the plan when? Yeah. Well, when it ends? What do you expect? That everyone's like, okay, good job. You destroyed, killed millions of people, and took huge swaths of land.
Well, he's going to
good on you.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, if he actually succeeds and he wins this war, it can save his career. He'll be popular. He'll imagine himself as going down in history as like the savior of Israel, like one of the great men of Israel. There with Ben Gurion or even King David or something. That's what he's imagining. I think, so within Israel, it probably makes sense. You understand, like, these people, when you observe their behaviors, we see them from the outside, but they live within these bubbles. And he doesn't really care what the rest of the world thinks. For them, it's almost like a validation. It's like, oh, the world hates us. It's just like, like the early 1930s all over again. And this time we're not going to, uh, we're not going to show any
Never
mercy.
again, never
Right,
again.
exactly. So we'll just kill them all, kill all our enemies. We're not going to show any mercy. And I think that's actually a very common and, a deeply entrenched way of thinking within Israel, not just within within the Netanyahu government, but throughout Israeli society.
I just wonder, will the world stand by and let it happen, though? I mean, we
So
got the
far,
immediate...
so far they have. I mean,
Right, I mean...
you could say the two exceptions are the Houthis and Hezbollah.
Yeah, right. The Houthis, they're the ones
and indirectly Iran. I mean, because Iran supports both of them.
Right, but I mean, I wonder, like, as this starts to expand, like if they start to roll further into the West Bank, they start going. Then you got Jordan that's going to erupt. You got Egypt that's going to erupt.
Well, they are taking that risk. Like, the farther they push it, the greater the chance that they're going to lose these comfortable arrangements they have with neighboring countries like Jordan, like Egypt, and Turkey too. Of course, Erdogan is he gives those fiery speeches, but he does have a comfortable economic arrangement with Israel. But at some point, Erdogan himself may just calculate. You say, this no longer makes sense to have anything to do with these people, and he could turn on them too. They're running that risk. The farther they go, the more likely they're going to start creating new enemies right on their borders, and then that will accelerate the shift in balance of power, a shift against them.
I don't know if you saw this news, but there is the upcoming BRICS summit in Kazan, and they will be adding 12 new countries to BRICS this time, and some pretty big players like Nigeria, Indonesia, Venezuela. A lot of oil, huge populated countries. Indonesia, I believe, is the fourth largest country in the world in terms of population. But also, surprisingly, in that list is Palestine. Did you see that?
No, actually, I didn't.
So Palestine is supposed to be added to BRICS. I know it's it's more of a economic arrangement than it's not a military alliance. But I think that carries some significance. It just shows that we're moving into this new paradigm shift where we're going to have the multipolar world and these new regional hegemons like Russia and China. There is not going to be a global hegemon like the United States. And in that corner with these huge powers like Russia and China, Palestine is now part of that group.
Yeah.
So,
right. Well, I think that's probably more of a political statement than anything.
Right.
But yeah, it is a significant political statement. It just shows where they stand.
Right.
Where this right. This is the emerging power. This is what's going to replace G20 and G7. And they, whereas G20, G7 in particular has always stood very firmly with Israel. This new and this rising, not alliance, but grouping of world powers is on the other side of the conflict.
Right. And after the addition of these 12 countries, the BRICS will now comprise 46% of the world population. I think something like 36, 37% of GDP. But once again, we said that GDP doesn't really matter. If we look at terms of manufacturing power,
capacity, right? In
manufacturing
PPP
capacity,
terms, yeah.
Yeah, plus, or if you look at it in PPP terms, or in terms of energy production in oil or whatever, the BRICS has the vast majority of that now. So it is showing that the world is moving this way, and the world is saying that we need to recognize Palestine. What Israel is doing is not okay. These are just political moves. There aren't many nations that are standing up and willing to be engaged militarily against Israel or the United States. But that is, I think it's changing. And I just feel like at some point, I think, like you said, we both agree, Iran is going to have to react at this point. And once that happens, I think we're going to see a new phase. All the celebration in the West about how awesome Israel is, don't celebrate so early. This is not, this war is just starting to kick off.
Right.
The wider regional war. Yeah, the Israel's going for the shock and awe. They've done a ton of damage to Hezbollah. They're massacring Beirut, but they are further isolating themselves in the world. They will draw in other regional powers. Iran will come in. I don't believe Jordan and Egypt these other Arab nations are going to sit on the sidelines for much longer once this erupts. And then the question is, what is the U.S. going to do? Because we don't want to get in this war. And it seems clear. The Pentagon is upset, is furious, is the word that the Jerusalem Post used.
Yeah.
We don't want to get involved in this. We have our hands tied.
Of course, it doesn't prevent them from supplying all the weapons and
but we can see how much ammunitions we have. We supply. I just saw we did another arms package to Taiwan. We're stretched thin. We can't supply our proxy in Ukraine with enough weapons. At some point, and it may be sooner rather than later, we'll see what happens. That the U.S. doesn't want this fight.
Yeah, well,
how far will they go in? I just really hope we don't get dragged in. Like, are they going to do a draft and try to get us? I mean, and then we have Russia that's that is forming more than just an economic alliance with Iran. It is now a military alliance as well with Iran, and we want to get in.
I guess not quite officially. They're going to be signing some sort of treaty, I think, with a couple of weeks from now, is my understanding. And, we'll see the details of that at the time.
Right.
Maybe it will be a formal alliance. We'll see. But obviously there's very close military cooperation between the two countries right now.
Right. And of course, they're getting it with China as well is in that corner. Maybe they don't have any formal alliance, but obviously they will be aiding, and China can produce everything at incredible speeds and incredible quantities. So it doesn't bode well, I think, in the long run. I just don't see this not exploding and us being on the wrong side. And
yeah, well, we're already on the wrong side, and we will be drawn into it. Yeah, I know there's like
how far will it go?
Private, this is not the first time we've heard reports about U.S. officials expressing their outrage at Israel. I mean, this is actually even prior to October 7th. You hear these reports periodically, but Israel knows it. They've probably received these lectures, and they've had people shouting at them over the phone, again and again. But they see it never makes any difference, because when push comes to shove, they get what they want. And then we just saw it with Lloyd Austin. Yeah, okay, he probably did shout at the guy over the phone. He probably was truly outraged, but then he went out in front of the podium and said, we stand by Israel, and warned Iran, which they've already, failed and lied to, and has shown remarkable restraint, but warned them, against escalation. I mean, the double standard is breathtaking.
Okay, well, we'll just sit with a bated breath to see the next move. But
yeah, it's a very scary. And I have to say that, there are times, a lot of times we talk about it, and it's almost just sort of intellectually interesting, all these topics. But occasionally it really comes home, and you feel like, the horror of what's happening and the real danger. And I really felt it this last weekend. I was really just down, just thinking about what Lebanon was going through, the people there. This is not just an interesting topic for discussion. We are talking about many lives. A lot of lives are being destroyed. People in Lebanon, many have been killed already, and there are easily, I think, already 1 million refugees.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of Beirut that I think are quite cosmopolitan. I mean,
yeah,
my brother, your son, lived in Beirut for a while. It's just, these places are real. That's the problem I think so many people have, is they just that haven't traveled the world, that haven't been to these regions. It makes it easy to demonize it, and it's just like some fantasy book that they're reading, and they're like, oh, it's cool. They can rationalize it very easily in their mind. Once you go to these places, these are real people, and they're very nice people, and they're being massacred. It's horrific. It truly is.